Hello, welcome to my live stream. Streaming to you from sunny Queensland, Australia. Streaming to YouTube, my Facebook page, Life and Destiny Palmistry. I hope you're joining me today on TikTok as well. I look forward to answering your questions today about the palm lines, anything that you're interested in. If you know anything about palmistry, reading the palm lines or the hands, let me know. If you're a qualified palm reader, are you a qualified? I don't mean qualified. Do you know anything about palmistry? If you are just learning, are you a beginner? Do you have some knowledge of palmistry? Don't be shy, say hi. I can discuss what you might want to learn about, and I can also do some example drawings on some of my pictures that I bring up here. So let me know if there's anything that you would like to know. Thank you very much, Javed Hussain, for following. Lay Seymour, thank you for following. Layla Ali, Jinsen Akku, Jin Petki, thank you for following. That looks like Russian, I can't read that one. Thank you all astrological tips for subscribing, and Ope Rafael for subscribing. Denson Joseph, Jahavika and Rajani Pipari for subscribing. Thank you, everyone. I've had quite a few new subscribers just this week on YouTube, and I've been posting new videos on there. I have about 9 new videos that I will be putting up in the coming weeks. So look forward to doing that, and I hope you look forward to learning about those lines as well, those videos. So I will bring up a picture that I can draw, and I don't want to draw on this particular one. I'll see if I can find another one. Let's look at this one. Yeah, that one looks pretty good, I think. I think I can draw on that one. And I'll just finish my drink. A little bit slow setting up this morning as usual. Trying to arrange everything. So I will begin by doing a beginner's palmistry lesson. And anytime you want to say hi, welcome to say hi and ask me any questions. Hopefully I've got these 2 screens lined up. I've got 2 screens on happening here. So just looking at this particular hand picture that I've got here, we have this here is called the headline, or the mind line, represents the mind. Looks like I will adjust that just a little bit. Is that better? Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so that represents the mind. That can show whether someone is empathetic or whether they have a detail-oriented mind, or whether they are a quick thinker, or whether they have depressive states, or whether they are very logical, whether they are business minded. So it gives a lot of information, this line, because when it is long, that gives somebody more detail oriented, somebody who likes to research, somebody who's into many things. So they may have multiple hobbies, for example. But if it's short, if it's cut short, say half of that length, that would be somebody who's quick thinking, there's not into so much detail, and they like to get things done quickly. They like to research things quickly, just on the surface. They're not interested in the fine details per se. So that can also represent how much empathy a person has. If the headline is, I might clear that, if the headline is weak, short and straight, then that represents somebody who's a little bit less empathetic. They might have a very practical, business-like mindset. So they're not likely to be sentimental or empathetic unless there are other sort of balancing features on the hand, which there are multiple things that can balance that out. So when this line reaches beyond a certain point, that helps give that empathy. And so how we can measure that is, so if we draw an imaginary line from between the pinky and the ring finger down to the wrist, to the center of the wrist. If this headline goes beyond that line, then it's classed as an average or long headline. And this line then represents someone who can have feelings of empathy. Excuse me, I have my nice hot tea. So if it goes even further, that gives them more of that detail-oriented. If it goes straight across, it's more practical. If it droops downwards, if that line droops down, then that practicality is sort of not balanced. So there's a lot of deep feelings, and these types are prone to depressive moods if they're not careful, because they have such a creative mind. They create and imagine things well, but sometimes they can create and imagine negative things too well. So I always recommend for these people to possibly put that energy into something creative or practical or something constructive. If you find yourself in that depressive or overthinking deep things mood, then maybe go for a walk, get some fresh air, do some exercise, change a subject, bring out the painting or bring out an instrument and start playing that, or just find other ways to release that energy without sort of stewing on it. So somebody with that shorter headline that's straight, they're not likely to have those bouts of depression because they are more so practical in their thinking that they don't see the point in overthinking like that. So I hope that makes sense. Hope you understand that. So you would think that the mind line, being called the headline, the mind line, only represents the mind, but it's actually your mind that makes those moods. So even though we have a heart, we say we have a heart, but that is just a saying, because when we're talking about our feelings, we talk about our heart. But when we talk about feelings, it's actually how our mind thinks. So if that makes sense. So then we talk, speaking of the heart line, we're talking about the heart line. So the regular heart line is usually slightly curved and rises towards the index finger. Now that is just a standard. It represents somebody with good emotional balance and somebody who has an ideal type of relationship, or has an ideal for the type of relationship that they like, and also they potentially an ambitious kind of a personality. Now when that rises all the way up, so it's curved all the way up, that's excessive. So the person is very passionate because there's that excessive passion, I suppose. So that can be dangerous if the headline doesn't match. So the headline should ideally be long as well, preferably not long and drooping, but to match a long headline, to match that long, curving, passionate type of heartline, it needs to have a matching headline. So fairly long headline, but preferably not a curving. Finding words today. So if they're matching, that's ideal. So having a passionate, I'll just try and rub some of these out. Having a passionate type of heartline is generally okay, but sometimes these people can be a little bit over sort of bearing. They have a lot of demands in their relationship. They're very fussy. They probably have certain criteria that a person should meet in relationships. So if that is together, that kind of a passionate line is together with a weak headline, say if a weak headline is one that's kind of broken. So say if there's a broken weak headline, something like that, with a passionate heartline, that makes that person quite cold and calculating. And if they don't focus their passion on something creative or constructive or practical, their mind is not very empathetic at all. So these people can lose their temper quickly. They can get passionate about something, and if it doesn't go right, because they don't have the mental stability and they don't have that strength in their mind, because the mind line is shown as being weak by the breaking and how there's hardly any mind line there. So they tend to do things that are not rational, they're not practical, they're not using common sense or empathy in their acts. So I have seen this type of line on some people who are in jail for being naughty, because obviously they were using their passionate nature in the wrong way and not having that empathy for the person that they hurt. So not the ideal kind of line. Not to say that everyone who has this line will break the law or have a bad temper. There's always something that might balance it out. So redeeming qualities might be a small thumb, or like a narrow palm, like if you have water qualities, and the small thumb because a big thumb tends to give more sort of go-getter, more aggressiveness. So a small thumb would represent someone more quiet personality. So if you have this weak headline, it is redeeming to have a smaller thumb or a thinner thumb. And so I suppose in that case, the person might be more emotional because they are actually using their heart. So they actually have a heart, I suppose, that they run on their daily sort of life, so they're very empathetic. But that's probably quite rare. So a solid lifeline, a lifeline usually wraps around the thumb. If there happens to be two lifelines, which is quite rare, that gives extra strength. This person could even have a dual personality. So dual personality often has a fork on the headline or a double headline as well. So that represents somebody who might be an artist, but they might also be some kind of practical office worker or something. So there might be two opposing careers happening, or there might be just two opposing personalities. So it might be a female, for instance, who feels like she's more male, so she feels like she has very masculine characteristics. That's another option. But in general, the double lifeline represents strength, it gives support, and it's somebody who should have a lot of energy. And if they don't, if they go through periods of low energy, then that means that they will be fine because they have that extra support line. So they usually recover really quickly from illness, which is quite helpful. And so the fork in the headline or a double headline, that gives duality in the mindset. So the person can either have multiple personalities or they can change their mind quickly. So they might one day be creative and another day they might be just being practical, doing practical kind of work. Hello RW, you have joined. Welcome. I've got really tiny screen up for some reason. I'll struggle. I hope I can read your thing. Welcome RW, you have a question? Line curve from side of under the index and make straight line on the finger. Okay, I'll just clear this. So side of under the pinky and make a straight line on the finger. So onto the finger. Do you mean a long line or just a short line? Maybe you're referring to the finally here live. Yay. It's been a while, hasn't it? Because you keep missing the live stream. So you mean long. So long and straight. So how far does it reach? So if it's coming from here, are we going straight across? Does it go much further than that? It definitely sounds like an unusual. I was saying it's curved. The line curves, but then you're saying it's a straight line. The line curves, but it's a straight line. I'm not sure that I understand. Goes up. Does it go up to the Saturn finger like that? And yeah, you don't have to say sorry. don't have to apologize for not joining my live. That's okay. I do these regularly, so if you miss out, you can always watch the replay or come back another time. So I'm trying to potentially stick to the same day, but often things go wrong and I end up doing the live stream on a different day because that's what happens in life. So so from the Ring of Solomon, curve from the side of under index from the ring. So if there's a ring of Solomon is usually under the index finger. If it's like this first line that I drew, this one here, that's called a trauma line because it goes to Saturn. And the trauma line can represent something that happened in childhood. Yeah, so the trauma line, like the one I've just drawn in red, that one can happen if somebody as a young person were quite responsible and they had to work hard and they were under a lot of stress when they were young, or that they saw something traumatic when they were young. The Ring of Solomon, under the index finger, that's one I've just drawn in green, that one can represent someone who they can be spiritual, but not necessarily, because what it's doing is it's blocking the energy of Jupiter somewhat. And Jupiter represents the ego, your confidence, things that you idealize about, your ambition, your leadership ability, your optimistic nature. It can be about religion as well. It can be about love of nature. But mostly it's about your ego, how you see yourself, your self-image. So when that is blocked, it's blocking that flow of energy. It's possible that the Ring of Solomon is not allowing you to have a big ego. It's like you care about others more than your own needs. So somebody like that might receive lots of money and they will give it to the poor people because their ego doesn't allow them to hold on to all that money. So it's blocks that egotism, which is good. A half a ring is what I call a sympathy line. So if it only goes sort of half away, so it's like a person who feels sympathy easily, but there's enough ego for the person to still consider their own self-esteem and their own needs as well. So definitely the half circle is better than having the full circle. Although there's nothing wrong with having the full circle there if the person is happy with their situation of, lacking ego or having no ego. It can be a good thing, So I do know a couple of people like that, and yeah, they just get on with their lives, and usually they care for other people. But again, any of these marks need to have validation from the rest of the hand. So if you're looking at someone with a ring of Solomon, and if they have other qualities that go against that, so say if the index finger is very large, a very large index finger would sort of balance out that ring of Solomon. And if the mount is large, that will also balance it out a little bit. So there's always redeeming qualities that go against, for or against certain qualities. So that's why it's important to always look at the whole hand, not just one meaning. I realize, like, you know, in my books I talk about what a line means, blah blah blah, this is what the line means, but it is important to just to realize that just because I've said that's what the line means, it doesn't mean that it will be so for everybody, because like I said, redeeming qualities from other features that can balance out the meanings. So hopefully that makes sense. Welcome new viewers. Don't be shy, say hi. I'm here for another half an hour or so. I usually do 1 hour long live streams. So it's been about 27 minutes at the moment. So I'll do another half an hour, hopefully get some more questions from people. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel on YouTube, please subscribe. You can follow me on TikTok. You can follow me on Facebook. Life and Destiny Palmistry is my page, or my profile is Destiny Palmistry on Facebook. And YouTube is at Palm Readings or Destiny Palmistry. It's both. You can even find me there under my name. And yeah, I have over 300 videos on YouTube currently, and building every day. I've got 10 videos that I'm in the middle of working on. So they're all example palm readings from real live people. Yeah, so I've got photos of real people, and I'm doing palm readings from those photos. So yeah, it is hot here. It's winter and it's hot, would you believe? Anyway, that's Australia for you. So yeah, okay, what other question? Large Venus mount that falls under the sun mount. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Okay, this is Venus mount. And this is the sun mount. So a little bit confused. So is it so large that it goes all the way out here? Is that what you're saying? A large, so if this whole area is big and puffy, big Venus mount, it shows someone with a lot of appetite. They might be very affectionate. They might have a lot of friends. They'd have a lot of energy. They might have a great love for their family, or they might have high libido. But there's definitely a lot of energy. They might be an athlete. So that the smaller the amount of Venus is, the less energy there is. Lifeline. Yeah, so the yeah. So I think it's a little bit delayed. I think there's a small delay between YouTube and my streaming software. So yeah, so it's whenever something is in excess. So you look at a hand, if it's got normal size mounts, normal length fingers, nothing looks too fat, too short, too long, too big, too bendy, too straight. So if everything looks balanced, then that's standard. So when something stands out like a big puffy mount of Venus, that means that that particular area is in excess. So there's a little bit too much energy. They're too affectionate, or their appetite is too big, or they're too aggressive. Like it can, depending on other qualities, that can show an aggressive personality as well. So it takes things to extreme. So even the same with the lines. If any of the lines appear deeper, darker, stronger, longer, that puts things to being more excessive. So the personality that comes along with it is more intense. So that's why they talk about the SIMIAN line on the palm, which is one single line, and that looks like just like a power line. It's tense, a lot of tension there. So there's in excess because it goes all the way across the palm. So when anything is longer than average, that puts that intensity into the character of the person. So nearly all features on the palms represent the character, represent who you are. So we can look at it in a very logical way. So if the lines are really fine, if they're really wispy lines, so say if you have really quiet, thin lines, that can represent someone who is quiet in their life. So they don't usually like noisy surroundings, and they prefer peaceful surroundings as well. And if the lines are deep and strong and long, so that gives a bigger personality. Much bigger personality will have these long, deep lines and clear lines, so that you can see that there's stuff going on in their life. And they're generally much more outgoing and extroverted. So another question: straight heart, long heart, have a bit of curve. A straight heart line, long and have a bit of a curve. So the long heart line, I did have that discussion about that at the start of this video. It might have been before you came on, RW. But yeah, the longer the line, the more it shows like a passionate nature. The more so if it's curvy. If it's long and only slightly curved, say if it goes all the way like that, that shows somebody a little bit more ambitious. So somebody who wants things their way, they know what they want, and they usually go after what they want. And they also like that in other people. Not peaceful. Yeah, your lines are not peaceful. You don't like peaceful. So yeah, the longer the line, so that gives more of that feeling. So because if it goes to this area, Jupiter, that gives ambition. If it goes between the two fingers, that gives more passion. It also gives a more passion if it goes across, straight across. But that's most likely the Simian line that goes straight across like that. Sometimes you do have the heart line that goes straight across, and there's a headline, and that's, we call that the Suwon crease. And so yeah, so I suppose that can also represent somebody more caring. So when the heart line can represent the feelings, if it's short, then the feelings are more towards practical things and selfish things. Whereas if it's a long line, that person usually cares about other people, but they might have, I suppose, certain standards that they expect as well. So while they give a lot to others, they expect to be given back in return as well, if that makes sense. So yeah, it just gives more quality of feeling, unless there are branch lines that droopy down towards the headline. See, that's another quality that will take away some of that meaning. So that would be that if that's the case, then the person's emotional side is always being pulled in a rational way. So those branches, they tend to take away some of that emotional understanding, and then instead turns that emotion into a more logical thought. So, okay, so your daughter has the straight heart with a bit of a curve. Yep. So, yeah, that's perfectly normal to have a long heart line, and it's probably preferable to have a long heart line so that the person has got that nature of potentially helping others and having those feelings of empathy, but they need to match with the headline. So if there is a long, slightly curved heart line, it needs to be kind of matched. So hopefully there's a nice headline to match so that there's balance between the two. With a weak headline, the person can be overly sort of passionate about their life without being practical and logical. So it's good to have a balance of both. So say hi, people. Welcome to Say Hi. If you're interested in asking any questions, you can ask questions. And I've got another 20 minutes to answer your questions here. Anything that you'd like to know. If you got something on your hand that's unusual, the usual is what I've got drawn here, and it's usual for a lifeline to wrap around the ball of the thumb. And it's usual to have some of these lines rising up the top. If you have a health line, it's usual to have a health line. It's usual to have some worry and stress lines that can radiate from this area. That's normal as well. Many people have potentially a line that's somewhere in the region of that mount of moon. That's quite normal as well. In this case, a sort of a partial line like that is a partial intuition line. So it's not a full intuition line would curl around like that. Some people have just a partial intuition line. Health lines is normal if you have one. It's normal too to have two, but if you have multiple lines, then that's in excess. That's showing excess, too much. So that means that there could be an underlying health condition, potentially just a diet adjustment. And if you have multiple lines all up the top, then that's your mind is very active. There's a lot going on. You're probably burning the candle at both ends, whatever. You're working, you're thinking, you're probably going to the gym, you're probably being a parent, you're probably doing all the chores, you're probably a writer who's constantly thinking about what they're writing. So there's very active mind will have multiple lines up the top. If the person has income coming from multiple sources, then that can represent that as well. But if there's just a few lines up here, then that usually represents it's called the success line or the sun line and the career line. It's also called the line of Saturn or the fate line, fate, F-A-T-E. And communication lines up here under the pinky, they can represent someone who can communicate in a healing way. They often called medical stigmata or healing lines. So mainly doesn't mean that you're a doctor just because it's called medical stigmata. It just means that the person can communicate in a healing kind of way, because Mercury represents communication. Mercury is this mount here, represents communication, your business skills, teaching ability, writing ability, and what else? Basically, I suppose your intelligence. So somebody who is a salesperson, because they're trying to convince people to buy their product. People who are a salesperson will often have these lines, and they'll have a large amount of Mercury there. And people who have a strong ego with some, I suppose they feel very confident, will have a large amount of Jupiter. And people who feel very nurturing and very creative, imaginative, and I suppose somewhat moody as well, would have a large amount of Moon. So, okay, question time. Fate, you say faith line, I assume you mean fate line, F-A-T-E, fate line. I hope that's what you mean. Okay, fate line makes a triangle above the heart line and makes a star and upward branches. Okay, so let's first draw the heart line. So the fate line generally goes up towards the middle finger. So if it's making a triangle above the heart line and makes a star and upward branches. So there's probably upward branches, or there's the triangle on the heart line. That can represent the inspiration. So person who has inspiration for their career, their job or their work or their goals, they would have a line that comes from the heart line and it joins the fate line. And so that's an inspiration line. So it's passionate energy that's going towards that career or towards that goal, towards that motivation. So that is giving energy to the fate line. Upward branches are energy leaving the fate line, but they also point to branches. Say if someone has a career in writing, for example, and this is say the fate line is representing the writing career. So a branch from that could be representing that they also do motivational speeches based on their book, or that they create art based on their book, or that they teach others what they have written in their book. So it is a branch of the same hobby, job, career, business, a branch from that same and used in other positive ways. It's a very positive marking, and it can represent income from different sources, but based on that same source as well. So when the branch goes towards the Apollo line, that's representing more of a creative side, a creative branch of line of business. And when it goes towards the Jupiter, it's more of a royalty. When you have high ideals, when you have, I suppose, nobility, when you are noted for your brilliant works, and you might receive an award for being a brilliant person. So that could be something like that as well, if it goes towards the Jupiter. So that is, the person will be recognized for their quality work or whatever like that. That's just one example. So, but either way, any lines that rise from the heart line, say for example onto the success line, that is potentially an idea that the person has, and it's their passion, and they want to use that inspiration in their career to potentially bring them money. So one line goes sharply towards the sun mount. Okay, so that would be a creative branch. So if it goes like that, it can represent that a branch of that career or finances or whatever the person is doing is got a creative aspect to it, so some creative side. So if I go back to that example of the book author who it has got a sideline of earning money, not just selling the book, so that sideline would be very creative. So maybe they make direct movies out of it, make movies, or they make paintings from their book, or they do some other creative aspect that goes along with that work. So a really good example would be, say, someone like a doctor, for instance, whose job is very practical, but the branch line going to the creative aspect that means that maybe they have a sideline based on their knowledge of being a doctor. So maybe they do something creative, for instance, to do the diagrams for the body organs or something like that. So like maybe a book about that. Writing a book is being creative. So if the doctor potentially writes a book, that would show a line like that. But you have to be careful. Sometimes these lines, I'm going to clear this, sometimes these lines are not what they seem. So it takes careful eye. So when you have the line of Saturn, the fate line, and you've got the heart line, sometimes there is what's called a partial girdle of Venus, and that will start from between the index finger and the middle finger, and it'll stop there. And it might come from between the pinky and the ring finger, and it'll stop there. So in that case, that is a partial girdle of Venus, and it's not a branch from the fate line. And it takes a careful eye to work out, is this line leaving from the fate line, or is it leaving from up here? Is it leaving from the area of the space between the index and middle finger and coming towards? If that's the case, you will know that it gets thinner. The line gets thinner, and this area here, I'll change color. Ooh. This area, the line will be thinner, and it will be thicker where it begins. So where a line originates, it'll be thicker. Where it joins will be thinner. So that would be the girdle of Venus, a partial girdle of Venus. A full girdle of Venus goes all the way like that. That's one example. There are different types of girdles of Venus. Some people have like shattered. If you have a shattered girdle of Venus, it will look like that. And in that case, all of those lines mean the same thing. It means a person is highly strung, highly sensitive, and probably have a short temper, or they're just a little bit hyperactive. Or over emotional, that could be as well. So I hope that makes sense. We've got about 7 minutes left. If anybody else wants to ask any questions, here's your final chance. Speak now or forever hold your peace. I know I've got viewers there, but they're too shy to say hi. But that's okay. Next time I'll be going live again next week, so join me anytime to ask any questions, palmistry Q&A. So okay, they left. They thought I could see them through the screen. They were so shy they went. But anyway, yeah, so yes, it does take careful eye to work out what all these lines are. And the main thing is to see if it is a branch line or not, is to look at the line. Does a line clearly originate from the line, or does it cross the line? And also if there are multiple lines in the same vicinity. So, or if there's multiple lines in the same vicinity, then that is a whole patch of messy lines that represent the same thing. So you wouldn't say, oh yeah, this line means this and that line means that and this line means something else. No, the whole group as a collective represent one thing. And in this case, that would be regarding the health, because it's around the health lines. So yeah, somebody with a lot of lines on their palm, it makes it somewhat difficult to decipher what is what, because there's too many lines. If there are too many lines that are like cuts all over the line, like some people just have many sort of patchy lines all over, I call those fear lines. So the person potentially has a lot of phobias or fears, or that they allow energy, other people's energy, to affect them. So when people's energy is high, if they have a low energy and someone else has high energy, they probably get some of that high energy and they can't sort of handle it, like they're too sensitive. So that can affect their health as well if they don't block some of that energy. So I recommend meditation for those that have these messy lines, to try and sort of clear the mind. So that's about all we got. That's about all we got time for today, RW, unless you got one more question. Our other viewers didn't want to ask, but that's okay. Just waiting for the delay, the YouTube delay. I think it's about 15 seconds, 20 seconds, I don't know. Don't forget, guys, I have books for sale on destinypalmistry.com if you want a ebook version. I've got one of my old versions of Life and Destiny Palmistry. They don't print this one anymore. It was my first version. I have one. It is one that I will sign, but it is a bit expensive. I will sign because it has pictures in it that I had to remove. I had to change a picture, so I ended up changing the whole cover. I changed the content a little bit as well. One more question, last question. What is the meaning of mixed hand if it doesn't fall under the 4 shapes of hand? Okay, that's a good question because it's quite simple. It means that the person has a mix of those qualities. So very rarely a person is 100% water shape or 100% earth, but they can be. Of course, earth hand is quite common, but most people have more than one element in the hand shape. So sometimes the hand might have earth shape, but there's lots and lots of lines, and those lots of lines give a water quality. So the hand, for instance, my own hand, I have fairly short fingers and a fairly long thick palm. So I have a fire hand on that side, but when you turn my hand around, it's quite square and it looks more balanced on this side. So it's earth. So I have fire and earth, and that gives me a fire personality, but also down to earth personality. But funnily enough, in astrology, I'm a water sign. So there's no sign of like really water on my hand. So my water element comes from just from my inner personality, but my hand on the outside, I show fire and earth. So some people might have like a water hand on this side, so it might look quite long fingers, might look like a long palm, but when they turn around, it looks like a square palm with long fingers, which would be air. So they would have a quiet water personality, but with that touch of air, so that they are probably talkative, a bit more outgoing, or a bit more into details, and a bit more practical. So it gives them more a balance of practical personality with the water sign. So if there are elements of earth and air, so that is probably a rare combination, but that would give the practical personality more outgoing personality. So the most common mixed hands are to have fire and water. So it's not quite narrow enough to be full water hand, and not quite solid enough to be a fire hand. Sometimes you get fire and water, so the person is relatively quiet, but they have that get up and go and enthusiasm of the fire personality. So if you just combine the meanings of the two that it looks like, and that helps put together the type of person that they are. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that was streaming well to TikTok. Hello, my followers on TikTok. Hello to my followers on Facebook. And hello to everybody on my standard YouTube. I will be signing off now. And I hope that you guys can join me next time. Have your questions ready. Would love to answer all your questions, because that keeps the live going. I like doing live streams, but not if I'm just talking to myself. I prefer to be chatting with people. It's much more fun. So I hope that you can join me next time. Go to my YouTube channel, YouTube/@Palm Readings, or YouTube/Destiny Palmistry, and go to my section. It says live videos. If you click on the live videos, that shows upcoming, if there's any upcoming. You can check that regularly, and if you subscribe or join, you will get notification. Click the bell to get notified. So if you get notified when I go live next, you can come and join me, hopefully. If there's a certain time that you want me to go on live because you're on the other side of the world, I might be asleep, or you might be asleep while I'm awake, because I'm in Australia, so the time zone is a bit wacky. But if there is a particular time, let me know the time zone that you're in and what time suits. I might be able to adjust some of my live streams to suit a different audience, hopefully. So anyway, that is the end of this live stream. I will catch up with you next time. Stay safe. Bye.